Welcome to our InformatiqueNews studio for our rendezvous, weekly rendezvous, l'invité de la semaine. And this week we have the pleasure to meet with Matt Watt, who is CTO of NetApp for EMEA. Matt Watt, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Pleasure to be here.
Let's talk, of course, about NetApp, but about what most CIO are still thinking of NetApp, which is, you know, the NAS vendor.
Yeah.
And in most documents, you're presenting yourself as the data authority for hybrid cloud.
Yes.
And when you explain the organization of the company, you have three major units, which are cloud data services, cloud infrastructure, and storage and services.
Yes.
So could you explain a little bit all this and what are all these three different units working together, what the synergy between them and what the overall strategy? And also tell a little bit about, you're mentioning data fabric in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Is this like a buzzword for infrastructure or is this more than that?
Great. So
a lot of things.
There's a lot of things. So let me start off with a very quick bit of history. I think it's fair to say that, you know, in October 2014, we appointed a new CEO for the organization, George Kurian. And I think up until that point, it would have been very fair for companies to associate us with being a NAS company, a storage company, you know, all-flash FAS, and think about us very much as a product company. What George Kurian did when he came in was he brought a new strategy with him. He said that what we have to do as an organization is start to build out a portfolio of technologies that could enable our customers to build their data fabrics. So that was the very sort of high level view of where he felt we needed to go. And what that did was it kind of gave us that direction. It gave us that idea that says everything that we do should head towards that as being the strategy. Mm-hmm.
But you have to tell us what you mean by data fabrics.
Exactly. So I think from our point of view, NetApp today is a hybrid cloud data services company. That's how we describe ourselves. Not storage, not data management. It's about hybrid cloud data services. What that actually means is that we want to help companies put data and applications in the right place, at the right time, with the right characteristics to get new innovations or to accelerate and get better insights to data. And we do that by helping them to build their data fabrics. So what is a data fabric? Effectively, it's a strategy. It's, you know, the way I think about a data fabric is that most companies I talk to, if not all of them, are looking at some kind of combination of on-premises technology blended with a number of different cloud providers, whether that's Amazon, Microsoft, or Google, or whether it's software as a service from companies like Salesforce, SAP. So what our view is how do we help with that? How do we help people start to move towards this kind of hybrid multi-cloud world? So to your question about the sort of the three parts of NetApp, we very much had to look at the organization and say, there are kind of three areas we really need to focus on for us to bring that to life. The first one is we need to continue to develop and help companies build what we believe to be the best on-premises technology. Mm-hmm.
So storage
products, effectively, but they need to be cloud connected. So this would be, you know, our all-flash FAS platform, our max data platform for kind of performance acceleration, whether that might be Storage Grid or FlexPod, our converged infrastructure. They have to continue to be a focus, but they have to be able to complement and work with the cloud far more than anything that we've done before. Mm-hmm. The next part of our business was how do we start looking at the kind of the next generation of technologies that people are thinking about when they think about a private cloud. So that was very much around hyper-converged infrastructure, very much around things like object platforms. And again, making sure that those could work with and would augment the cloud. And then the final part of our business is around cloud data services. What are all of the things that we could offer that would enhance or make the experience of working with one of the big hyperscalers better or easier to do? And it's the technologies from all three of those areas which effectively come together, which we believe can help customers build their data fabrics.
So do you have customers using all three technology at the same time, or technology or solution at the same time? I suppose yes, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I give you a very good example, there's a company that I'm working with. They're actually a data visionary story for us called 3Lateral. And when I first started working with 3Lateral, their challenge was performance and capacity. So that's a simple discussion that we can solve with just one element of our portfolio. But when I started talking to the CEO, Vladimir Mastilovic, about this, he was saying that they needed a strategy for data. That was the initial problem, but they needed a strategy because they needed to solve that today. But the next step was they needed to be able to accelerate their test and development because they write a lot of their own software. So we could then start to show them how they could introduce HCI with our NetApp Kubernetes service to be able to accelerate test and development. And now they've just been bought by Epic Games, and they're looking at how do they start to better share data with their partners, Epic Games data centers across a number of locations in the US. So we're now introducing our Cloud Volume Service for AWS, which enables them to securely share data. So that, for me, is a really good example of how, yes, we brought in technology to solve one particular problem, but actually it was just a stepping stone towards us helping them build a much more comprehensive data fabric that addressed a whole series of different challenges for them.
It looks like this is going to a lot more complexity than it used to be. Do you agree on that?
So we have kind of three tenets, if you like, of what we want to help. So when we think about how we bring a data fabric to life, yes, there are the products that effectively bring it to life, but we have three characteristics that we think about. The first one is simplicity. We have to try and make this experience of building these kind of more hybrid multi-cloud environments as simple as possible. And actually, if you look at the service, our Cloud Volume Service for Amazon, our Cloud Volume Service for Google, and Azure NetApp Files inside Microsoft Azure, the way that you manage those environments is exactly the same. So that's three different clouds, but we can provide exactly the same experience.
Looks the same on the same console.
It looks the same. You can manage it the same way. So we're trying to provide an ability for people to use on-premises technology combined with multiple clouds, but with a simple experience over the top of it, such that it masks a lot of that underlying complexity. So simplicity is key. Protection, because as you start to spread your data further across more locations, how do you protect that, secure it, make sure that it kind of has enterprise-grade data protection becomes absolutely key. And the final one is freedom of choice. Our role has always been not to dictate to people which cloud providers we believe they should work with. It's up to us to give you the option to work with whichever ones you want to work with. And our strategy is to try and add value, add simplicity, or add capabilities into that.
So it's not you remember the formula that it's a freedom of choice as long as you're choosing,
you're free to choose anything that you want from us. No, and that's, we were very conscious that we couldn't do that. And you think about what we're doing with Kubernetes, our NetApp Kubernetes service, it allows customers to be able to create Kubernetes clusters across not just the on-premises technology, but all of the hyperscalers.
Right.
But it uses the native services inside the hyperscalers. We're not trying to lock anybody into, you're using our Kubernetes service, therefore that's all you'll ever use. No, we're more of a kind of a simplicity and orchestration platform that tries to make the ability to use that in this hybrid world much, much more simple.
Is it fair to say that the first unit, which is storage and software, but mostly storage, is still the legacy of and the bulk of your revenue, and the other two are nascent business? Or how fast is the shifting from the first one to the other two?
So it's a fair question, and I would say the sort of more traditional part of our portfolio is still, let's say, the lion's share of what we do. As you will know...
Could you put a number of that lion's share?
We do actually advertise the number. So in fact, I think last year was the first time we broke out our cloud services revenue, which I think we was running at about $77 million currently.
Okay.
So it is a small but growing revenue as a component of our business. But I guess the way we look at it is, the reality is all of these are just endpoints. So what we're trying to do is bring locations where you can store data with different characteristics and make those available in the simplest way that we possibly can, whether that's all-flash FAS, storage grid, HCI, whether it's cloud volumes running in any one of the hyperscalers. Those sort of endpoints will always be the kind of the foundational layer. What Cloud Data Services is doing for us is starting to link them together. Because now with our Fabric Orchestrator, which has just gone into preview, that tool can discover all of the endpoints where you may have data stored, regardless of whether that's on premises or whether that's across any one of the hyperscale providers. Once we've discovered them all, we can then start to enable you to integrate them. You can say, I want this volume that's living on this system to replicate into this volume that's inside Azure. We can then start to optimize them. We can look at those endpoints and tell you, is there data that hasn't been accessed for a period of time, and give you the ability to start archiving it. We can do other things like protect and secure it. We can start to tell you who is accessing data where across all of these endpoints and alert you to whether that's normal behavior. And the most recent thing that we've brought to the data fabric is compliance. So you've discovered everything.
When you say discover everything, you mean just NetApp products or any kind of storage products?
So right now, the Fabric Orchestrator is about discovering our endpoints, so HCI, all-flash FAS, and our cloud volumes inside the hyperscalers.
So the goal is to do that?
Going forward, it could be any endpoint. So that would certainly be part of what we would like to be able to orchestrate, to create a fabric orchestration layer that is much, much more heterogeneous.
So how this will work? I mean, you will have to put like an agent on all these solution, or how?
We actually have the pieces already. So a product that we launched many, many years ago was called On-Command Insight. And On-Command Insight has been our tool for discovering heterogeneous environments within our customers' businesses, and it is agentless. Effectively, you install it, it runs inside some virtual machines, and it goes out and it discovers all of the storage devices that exist. It discovers all of the volumes that exist within them. It discovers all of the fiber channel networks and the paths that the servers have through the fiber channel networks into the storage array. So we've always had a product that allows us to discover all of those things. What we've recently done is made that product available as a service model. So we have Cloud Insights, which is something that people can call on demand to discover their environment at a particular point in time and then switch it off if they didn't want to use it. That tool gives us the information to be able to discover an entirely heterogeneous fabric, because we can discover storage devices and volumes on those storage devices regardless of who those devices belong to. So right now, our focus is predominantly around our own endpoints across kind of a hybrid multi-cloud. Going forward, then it can certainly be much more heterogeneous.
So this will be a good differentiator with your, being able to discover everything on the, on your network. And so when this will be available?
So the technology's gone into preview at the moment for the Fabric Orchestrator, so the framework that wraps all of this together. It's hard to say how quickly that happens, but technologies that usually launch from our Cloud Data Services group, once they go into preview, usually come out of preview within weeks or maybe just a couple of months.
So this year, definitely?
Oh, this year, without a doubt.
Okay. You had a major announcement this year, which we called Keystone.
Yes.
NetApp Keystone. And is it fair to say that it's just like a pay-per-use system or a proposition to the customer, or is it more than that? And that's the trend that every vendor is following. HPE has a Green Lake solution, and others have the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
So is this just like the same thing, pay-per-use, or is this some plus maybe managed services, or is it more than that?
So I think it's some of that and more, I think is the way to summarize it. We absolutely want to ensure that as people look at a more dynamic model as to the way that they consume and use IT, especially if you think about what we're doing here with this Fabric Orchestrator and with the data fabrics that we're helping companies to build, it's much, much more dynamic. People can start to consume storage from Amazon and then reduce the requirements. They can consume from Azure and reduce the requirements.
Well, sometimes they're still consuming that they don't use it.
Oh, well, and part of what we're doing with the Fabric Orchestrator is to tell you that.
Okay.
Are there areas...
To remind you that...
Remind you that, by the way, there's an area over here that no one's accessed anything on it for.
Okay.
So again, we can start to discover all of that as a part of what we're bringing to the table. So it's absolutely about providing a better consumption model that is much more dynamic in its nature as people's environments are much more dynamic. It is about providing the ability for people to kind of scale up into sort of capacity buffers. But it's also, and I think one of the things that really appeals to me, is it's also about providing guarantees. a lot of people who've been buying technology from any vendor over the last few years, they want a performance guarantee, they want a capacity guarantee, they want an efficiency guarantee.
So it's like an SLA, kind of?
Yes. So as a part of Keystone, it provides that much more dynamic model where it is based on consumption. It can be, do you want to run it yourself, in which case it's this cost? Do you want us to run it as a service? Do you want somebody, a partner, to run it as a service? All of those things can be baked into as a part of Keystone, but you do not lose any of the guarantees. If you still want a performance guarantee, an efficiency guarantee, all of those things are still part of what we can build into the Keystone model.
And if the customer doesn't meet the performance, what is happening?
It's up to us to rectify it through whatever means that we need to take to rectify it.
Penalty, or?
Yes, I mean,
it depends what's in the contract. I suppose.
It does. You know, if you look at our efficiency guarantee program today, we guarantee a level of efficiency. We work with the customer up front to make sure that we believe we can hit that. If for some reason we don't get to the level of efficiency that we guaranteed, then we remediate. Okay. We provide the equipment.
And this model is working with all your partners. And how does that work exactly? Because you know it's complex in itself, but then if you have all your partners doing the same thing, it's a lot more complicated.
So we're in the process of rolling this out, I think is the best way to say that. You're absolutely right. Whilst I would suspect most of our partners will want to be able to have that model available to them, we have to be realistic. There is work that goes into understanding what a customer wants, what Keystone is going to look like for a particular customer. So we have to work with, we have to start to define, well, which partners are the ones that are going to become a part of this program to begin with. But the intention is that we make Keystone a broad part of our offering, and partners have always been a key part of our strategy. So
this was an announcement you made last October, so it's been about 3 months. What was the response from the customers? Do you already have some contract signed, or how is it doing?
So certainly in terms of response from the sense and the feedback that we're getting from both our customers, the market, from the analysts, extremely positive is the general feedback that we're getting. We have a number of customers that we're now working through, starting to put Keystone projects in place, but it's too soon for me to kind of make any public announcement about exactly kind of who and when they've been signed. But we are actively now working on Keystone agreements with people.
You've been a long-term partner with VMware, of course, and supporting all the technology. And on the other side, you are supporting Kubernetes as well. How does these two are working together from your point of view?
So VMware has always been a very, very strong partner for us. I think, if I go back to when we first really started our relationship with VMware, at that time in the market, there was lots of people in the analysts and others saying that, software-defined VMware, this will be the death of kind of the storage companies and a whole bunch of other companies. And we actually recognized that there was real value that we could bring to companies that were looking to operate VMware. And as we kind of lent into that and started to demonstrate to VMware administration teams that if you can put the right capabilities underneath the data, you can create incredible opportunities in the environments that run above it. And we started to show people how we could clone and snapshot and do all these things. VMware for us wasn't a threat. In fact, it provided us with one of our biggest opportunities for growth. And that continues. Our partnership with VMware, the integrations that we have with VMware continue to go from strength to strength. Kubernetes is a very interesting one because it's one of those technologies that really exploded over the last kind of 12 months. And I think will continue to over the next 12 months as it really continues its move towards being very mainstream as people think about it in terms of how they production and they look at production deployments. I've always had there are kind of 3 aspects to IT. There's what I call, and you may have heard this analogy before, but I'll share it with you. There's what I call the pets, which are the pets, cattle.
But go ahead.
But let me share it because I think there's an element to it which maybe you hadn't come across, or maybe. So pets effectively are the more traditional applications that are kind of going to be there for a foreseeable time into the future. My first Oracle servers were called Asterisk and Obelisk. And most IT departments have pets. They have these workloads that are, core systems that are very difficult to move, that they need to continuously refresh with better and later and greater hardware. And that's a great place for some of our technologies, like our all-flash FAS, like our conversion infrastructure. Then you have, and by the way, it's not a growth area. That's an area that it's kind of flat, and it goes through a little bit of growth, a little bit of shrinkage, depending on the month of the year. Alongside that, you've got the VMware environments. And this isn't about a few physical servers, this is about hundreds of virtual servers. And we think about these differently. These are more like cattle. We treat them more like a herd. We still concern ourselves with them, we still worry about them, and if one gets sick, you try and make it better. If it gets really sick, you just remove it and you replace it with another one. And that's been a great area for us when we think about HCI and we think about some of our other technologies. And will continue to grow. And then I think there's the third one, which is where I start to think about Kubernetes and Docker and the whole container-based environment. Google were at our sales conference a year back, and I remember they put up a slide and it said, Google start 3 billion containers. And I remember seeing the slide and thinking, wow, that must be like every year. And the guy pressed the button and it said every 2 weeks. And now we are not Google, most of our customers are not Google, but when I saw that and you think 3 billion of these little tiny servers coming online and dying, they're not pets, they're not cattle, they're more like insects. And so when I start to think about what does the IT landscape look like going forward, it really is sort of pets and cattle and insects. And then underneath that will be a mix of on-premises technology, the more modern generation HCI object type platforms, and cloud. And for us, it's bringing value to each one of those areas.
Well, I'm not going to say that NetApp is like a zoo, but I think we
have the Dr. Doolittle rather than the CTO, maybe.
Very strong review, and we're going to stop with this animal metaphor. So anyways, NetApp, thank you very much.
No, thank you. It's a pleasure.